What's up guys, it's Tony from Streetball Strategies, where we use strategy to build your streetball legacy. Today we're talking about the importance of accountability. So with accountability, we're talking about setting a certain standard for yourself and then responsibly holding yourself to that standard. For example, you're trying to build your streetball legacy, and so when you're out here playing games or having people watch you, it's easy to meet a certain standard for yourself. It's easy to play hard. It's easy to give effort when people are watching you, when you're playing against people, pretty much when people are there witnessing you and judging your effort. In that case, it's easy to meet whatever standard you set for yourself because essentially you're showing off for those people. But the question is, how do you play by yourself? How do you practice by yourself when there's no one out here with you, when it's just you on your own, no one's watching, no one's judging, there's no one to show off for? How then do you stick to that standard? Do you put out the effort? Do you put out the intensity? Or are you kind of lackadaisical? Do you sprint after loose balls, after rebounds? Do you make yourself practice hard when no one else is around? Do you hold yourself accountable? Do you hold yourself accountable and responsible for the standard you're trying to meet? And I would of course encourage you to develop your standard of accountability, to be able to hold yourself accountable for high standards that you set for yourself. But in reality, some people sometimes they just don't handle accountability well. They have a hard time with holding themselves accountable for that standard all the time. Some people sometimes depend on having people around so that those people will then hold them accountable for meeting that standard. Whether it is them encouraging them or whether it's trying to show off for them, whatever motivates them in order to meet the standard that they set for themselves. Some people depend on having other people around so that they can then meet those standards. And especially in the beginning, I would encourage you to do whatever works in terms of accountability and holding yourself accountable. Whatever you need to do in order for that accountability to happen, that's what you do. So if you need people around in order for you to maintain that high standard of play that you set for yourself, that's perfectly fine. You do that. If it works for you, you do it. But over time, you of course want to develop your own sense of accountability so that regardless of if you're out here by yourself, you can hold yourself accountable and thus meet high standards that you set for yourself and continue down that path of your legacy. And I bring this up now at this time because I'm really good at holding myself responsible and being accountable for the standards that I set for myself. But I've also had years and years of practice and experience in order to do that. But I'm going to bring you guys in on something that I'm trying to do, that I'm going to invite you guys to also hold me accountable for something that I'm going to start working on here very soon. First of all, let me give you a little bit of background. So for those of you who don't know, I'm retired from competitive play. I've been retired for a long time. I retired back when I was 28 because, well, there's a lot of reasons and it's a super long story, but I was very intense about basketball in my 20s, so much so that by 28 I had run myself into the ground. I had worn myself out physically to the point where I had arthritis throughout most of my body, my feet, my knees, my hips, my back, my neck. I even have arthritis in my knuckles from working out so hard. And I was also burnt out physically as well as mentally and emotionally. And at the peak of my game, I got to the point where I could step on the court against pretty much anybody on pretty much any courts, and I could watch people playing, or I could just jump right into a game, and usually within that game I could figure out how to beat whoever I was playing against, or I could figure out how to maximize any players I was playing on the same team with, thus being able to win any game I would jump into. And there's a lot of background there, there's a lot of work and studying and developing myself, my game, my body in order to be able to do that. But the point is, I got to the point where I could win consistently against most people on most courts, and I became so intense about doing that over time I unintentionally wore myself down. I burned myself out. I burned most of my fast twitch muscle fibers, and I gave myself all of this arthritis. And when I couldn't just step on the court anymore and pretty much impose my will against whoever and dominate against whoever because I was wearing myself down unintentionally, when I couldn't do that anymore, I just decided to walk away. And so I retired, and that was about 9 years ago. And since then, I've been working to try to figure out who I was and what my identity was without being a competitive basketball player, because throughout most of my life, that's kind of how I built my life. I revolved it around identifying as a basketball player. And so when I retired, I didn't really know who I was or what my life was going to be about without being a competitive basketball player at the center of it. And I think I've done a pretty good job over the last 9 years of figuring myself out and getting my life together and developing a satisfactory and fulfilling life. But one of the things I miss most about playing basketball is spending that time with my friends. Playing basketball was one of the main ways that them and I spent time together, bonding and competing and making memories. And because I was the person who usually organized our weekly game, once I retired, it was like we all kind of retired. Because it's been 9 years, if I were to say to them, hey guys, let's play basketball next weekend, there's a very good chance that they may not show up, because we are all out of basketball shape. Most of us are out of shape just in general, and because of that, being 9 years older than we were when we last played on a regular basis, it would be frustrating just to show up to the court again and start trying to play and just be completely rusty and almost to the point where it's like, you know, starting over again on the basketball court. Because of that, most guys probably wouldn't show up. But if I said to them, okay guys, it's been 9 years since we've played, let's get together in one more year, so that at that point it will be 10 years. In a year, let's get together for one sort of big, momentous, epic reunion day game, and let's get together for the day and play basketball. I'm going to give you guys a year to get back in shape, get your games back, shake the rust off, get back in basketball shape. I'll give you a year. If I did that, then it's much more likely that guys would show up and they would play and we'd have a great time. And so essentially that's what I'm doing. I'm going to try to organize this reunion day basketball game in August of 2021, 10 years after I've retired. Just one day of epic basketball with the friends who watched me come up and play with me and know my basketball journey. But I'm perfectly aware that if I show up for that game on that day and I haven't really practiced, I haven't really played, I haven't competed in years, and so if I just show up for that day and just sort of try to bring it all back out of nowhere, that it's going to be very frustrating. I'm completely out of practice, I'm completely out of basketball shape. I'm very aware of that, and so over the next year I'm going to work to see how I can bring my game back, being 10 years retired from playing basketball competitively. And I'm going to bring you guys in and help keep me accountable for trying to meet that goal. And at this point, that goal pretty much just is generally, I want to show up to the court on that day and not become frustrated. I want to be comfortable in my game. I want to feel like I can come out here and at least hold my own. At this point, the goal is just sort of to feel comfortable and not feel frustrated because it feels like I'm so out of practice that I have no business being on the court. I just want to feel comfortable on the court so that I can then have fun and relax and enjoy the day. And that may not sound like much of a goal to some of you guys who may think, why not set a higher standard for yourself? Why, do you have such low expectations? And it's because, I'm in my late 30s and I've been retired for 10 years. I want to be realistic. I don't want to think that I'm just gonna come out here and be able to do what I used to be able to do, because I've worked on my body since then and I'm in fairly good shape overall. But in terms of basketball shape, I'm realistic that my fast twitch muscles are gone and I'm covered in layers of arthritis. I know that I can't do what I did in my 20s, and so I just want to be comfortable out here, be able to feel comfortable making and taking jump shots and that kind of stuff. I want to be comfortable, be relaxed, so that I can have fun and not be frustrated by whatever mistakes that I happen to make. And so over the next year, I'm going to be checking in with you guys regularly, probably at least once a month, to give you guys updates on my progress, to let you know what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it, and let you know honestly about how it's going and what kind of progress I am either making or not making. But I'm going to do that in order to let you guys help me hold myself accountable. And like I said, I'll be honest about how things are going. If things are not going well, you'll definitely know, and I will be honest about that. I mean, I do a lot of talking out here, and I feel like I do a lot of talking at you guys, and you guys should have the chance to sort of get to know me and what I'm about, and if I can't actually walk the things I talk, right? So if I can't do what I tell you guys to do, then why should you listen to me? So over the next year, I'll check in regularly, let you know how it's going, and let you guys see my process of how I go about doing this. And I realize this is a young man's game, and most of my friends are about my age anyway, so it's not like I'm going to be competing in a year against teenagers or 20-year-olds. But you'll get to see, even though I am not going to become a regular competitive player anymore, you'll at least get to see how I approach things and if they work for me or not. And then you guys can judge from there and draw your own conclusions, and continue to ask yourselves whether or not you should continue to take my advice. But I thank you guys for watching, and I thank you guys for holding me accountable in the future as I go through this process. I hope you guys will check in with me and see how I'm doing. The channel is going to remain the same as it has been. The videos are going to remain the same as they have been. It's just that from time to time I will check in and post a video about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, how's it's going, and you guys will be able to follow along throughout this process. So until then, play hard, play smart, and I will see you guys next week.
Holding yourself accountable doesn't mean others will never do you wrong. It doesn't mean everything is your fault. It means whatever happens, you are going to make it work. Whatever happens, You are going to win.